Hello and welcome to Narb Makes. Recently started getting into wargaming terrain building, and I made an acrylic mat and also wanted to make some roads to go along with it. I start by looking at some reference images to get a good idea of what I want the end result to mimic. I want these roads to fit a post-apocalyptic setting, so the more torn up, the better. To make the roads somewhat modular, I'm making this template for the termination. Took a piece of paper and ripped it in half at a sort of odd angle, and then sketched out the outline of each side onto a piece of cardstock that I'm cutting out. The idea here is that no matter what end I want to connect, both sides of the rip are represented in each piece. I will always have a valid connection that looks somewhat believable for the asphalt to have cracked along. Setting up a small section of drop cloth to spread acrylic caulk on. This is the type of stuff you would use on your door and window frames. Get the cheap stuff. For this section I end up using about 2.5 tubes worth. I'll be mixing all the other ingredients in this plastic tub I have, adding in some black acrylic paint and baking soda for some texture. I'm basically mixing here until I get an even consistency. I'm using a 6-inch drywall taping knife for spreading this stuff out. But you could probably use anything that's got a flat surface. Even your hand would do the trick. Just make sure to wear a glove. This particular brand of drop cloth has a plastic backing on it. If you can't find one with the same feature, do this step on top of a non-stick surface, or else the cloth might glue itself to the surface you're working on. After I spread it all out, I waited about an hour for it to harden up a bit. I then started creating these little cracks you see here. Just kind of randomly moving a sharp tool around, trying to replicate those reference images, just getting lots of little nice cracks here and there. Not too bad. Took about 10 or so minutes, but the whole board is covered now. And now we let it dry. Overnight and into the evening, I let this set a bit more before I started the next step. I flipped the mat over on its back and I started laying out lines with my template that I had made earlier. I just wanted to kind of get an even coverage across the board and get some different sized roads. I also wanted to get some intersections. For this build, I'm just doing a regular cross intersection and one T intersection, and that should give me enough to work with. Definitely wait for a full day to dry before attempting this step, or else you're gonna have mushy acrylic that's just gonna kind of seep in and not set properly. I'm realizing at this point that I had some inaccuracies in my template that will get kind of transferred into the drop cloth, which will then get transferred into me cutting it. But because of the way that these are supposed to mimic cracks in the road, I'm not too worried about it. Like, there's going to be holes where there's a crack formed up anyway, so that kind of makes it a bit more forgiving. As I was cutting these out, they have a real nice heft to them that I wasn't expecting. They'll work really nicely going over any elevation changes you have in the terrain. And they have like a real weight to them when moving them around. Here I'm cutting that bigger piece in the middle, make 2 smaller pieces. It was helpful to cut the long strips ahead of time and then cut them up to size afterwards. This is the T intersection here on the right. I was super giddy just trying out different combinations as I was cutting these out. Seeing it all come together is just really awesome. I didn't know if this was gonna work out initially, but I'm really happy with the results at this point. For the cross intersection, I ended up mirroring the 2 different types of connections, one top, one bottom, one left, one right, just to give me some options when putting roads in. I had some EVA foam letter size sheets lying around, so I decided to try and see if I can use that material as well. The only problem was I needed to carve out some of the cracks into this material as well. In order to replicate the asphalt texture, I'm mixing together some texture paint. Being super unscientific here, it's some parts PVA glue, some parts acrylic paint, and water, and mixing it all up, adding a dash of fairy dust, and some gravel. I was considering adding baking soda, but actually adding gravel I thought would get me more cracks, so I decided to go with that. Putting it on pretty thick and seeing what I can get away with here. This layer serves as my base coat, and then I'm doing like a really simple paint job on these. After this base coat, I'll be dry brushing some lighter gray color. I think it's like a graphite, just cheap craft store paint. I noticed asphalt can have like a wide range of colors on it, so the base layer, and that's what the acrylic's made of, is just pure black because that's what new tarmac looks like. But then I want to get like really, really light at the very top because that's what really aged asphalt kind of tends to end up looking like. So I'll see if I can replicate that in just various brush strokes and just smearing things around. The brush strokes here kind of actually help set the direction of traffic that might have been going down these roads, so adding some really simple lines on the roads, just some masking tape cut out at regular intervals, and some white paint to kind of paint those in the middle. I try and get it as close to the middle as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. These are ruined roads after all. It could have shifted, it could have drifted. I realized afterwards that I might not be getting these correctly aligned if I'm trying to match up two sides. They might have different spacing right on the crack line, but you can always overlap them a bit more and you won't notice the difference. For the straight lines here, I just cut out more of the masking tape in between the lines, and I just made like a solid line that I'm painting over as a guide. You can get way fancier here with different pattern designs, but I chose to keep it simple. Going over everything with a really dark wash here just to really add some depth to the cracks. It ends up drying a bit lighter than what you see here, but it was still quite dark, so I did end up going with another dry brush on top just to lighten it up a bit. Yep, you can see that here. So I'm just kind of swishing that brush around, just kind of getting everywhere. I'll touch up the lines a bit more to make them pop. That's the thing with paint, is just if you're not happy with what you're seeing, just go over it again and repaint it. Try again, right? By the way, if you've made it this far in the video, please hit the like button below and consider subscribing if you want to see more DIY videos. I think I'll be releasing some more RPG or Wargaming terrain videos in the near future. Also, if you want to see how I made the table this is all going on, check out my other video linked in the card. After letting all that dry yet again, I was so happy to start putting it together and seeing what kind of scene I could come up with. So please enjoy.